Welcome. I'm Julie Thompson, Executive Director of PACTV, and today we're hosting a COVID-19 update for the town of Duxbury, featuring the Duxbury Senior Center. We're hosting these forums every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. Watch in Duxbury on Comcast 15 or Verizon 39. You can also view online on our streaming channel by visiting pactv.org/live. To ask questions during the forum, please email them to duxburyinfo@pactv.org. For the forum replay schedule and additional Duxbury coverage, please visit pactv.org/Duxbury. Joanne Moore, the Director of the Duxbury Senior Center, will open the forum and introduce the host, Kay Cooney. Welcome, Joanne.
Thank you, Julie. It's so nice to be here again, and I am thrilled to see Kay. It was fun to pinch it last week, but we are so glad to have you back to give us some more information, common sense information on how to survive during these uncharted territory. And we're thrilled, and I know we're going to have lots of questions today because we're talking about gut health. We were on our staff meeting right before now, and one of our staff said, "Please ask Kay, are Reese cups okay?" And I'm afraid the answer is going to be no, but I hated to say that to her. So this is part one of two parts that we're going to be talking about. Food is medicine. So let me turn it over to you, Kay. And I'm sure as the time goes on, we'll get some call-in questions, and I have a few questions of my own. So take it away, Kay.
Awesome. Good morning, Joanne. Good morning, folks. I'm so sorry I missed you last week. So I have to tell you, I had a little bit of a scare. I was concerned that I had corona, like many of you go through this scare. I was fine. It was allergies. So I'm back with you. But I more than ever commiserate with those of you who have a lot of fear and anxiety around this. It certainly has been an interesting time. So I hope you folks are doing well. Please know that we're here to answer your questions. And the reason why we're doing gut health today is because it's directly tracked to your immune system. So during this time of quarantine and here thereafter, we want to make sure we're in the best health possible to be able to combat this particular virus and anything else that. So today we're going to talk about gut health. And if there's anything I talk about that doesn't appear clear to you, just email in. You'll see the email address pop up from time to time. For those of you that were with us 2 weeks ago when we did the all natural cleaners and sanitizers, that information has been posted on Duxbury's website. And I don't know if any of you have been following along on the same news channels as I have, but there was this whole expose on folks who were sick and contaminated and all these issues from using Lysol-like products, Clorox, different things that's been in the media lately. So we were 2 steps ahead of them. So hopefully you're trying some of those out. And one of the folks at the center, Miss Carol, she has beautifully put them together in like recipe cards for your use. So we're going to start with the gut now. And what it comes down to is this. So this is how I like to describe it to people. Is your gut a well manicured, spa like building with a beautiful green lawn and everything is neat and clean and in order? Or does it look like a house where squatters have taken over and they are armed with knives and guns and they are not a friendly bunch at all, right? So when we're talking about our guts, we are talking about different levels of healthiness, right? All the way from complete healthy to this side to a complete mess over on this side. Most of us are in the middle, but a little bit over here towards the bad guys, okay? And when we're talking about the bad guys, we really are talking about the bacteria that is in our gut. In our gut, which is about 25 to 30 feet long, there's about 100 trillion, with a T, bacteria. Some are good, some are bad. The way that we want to win the game is always have more good than have bad, and we need variety. Okay. So just like any neighborhood to function, you need policemen, you need firemen, you need nurses, you need sanitation workers. Same as in your gut, you need variety. So we're going to talk about how we can get some of that variety. There is also, so in addition to the 100 trillion bacteria in your gut, and your gut is literally from your mouth to your anus. So it's all the way in your esophagus, your belly, all of your intestines, all the way out. That's what we refer to as the gut. There are 100 million neurons along the 25 feet of gut. And those neurons go directly from the brain to the gut and back again. So, something that's interesting, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, is the impact of emotions and thoughts on your gut and your overall health. We're going to talk about. And if you have any doubt that your mind and your what you think impacts your gut, right? We've always heard gut instinct, use your gut. I get a funny feeling when I'm around them, so and so. This is a great exercise to talk about the power of the gut. So if you're following along at home, close your eyes and make believe you are on the absolute top of the John Hancock building in Boston. Okay? Keep your eyes closed. I'd like you to edge over to the absolute edge of the building and put your toes over, just your toes, and look down. Okay? You can open your eyes. Did you feel sick to your stomach in doing that exercise?
Yes.
There was that pit, that hollow. So if you don't think that your emotions are directly tied into your health and wellness in your body, you're missing a critical part of health and wellness. So when we're fighting with other people, when we're perseverating about things, when we're depressed, when we're sad, when we don't get enough sleep, when we choose to gossip and get pulled into the negative aspects of things, all of that impacts our health and wellness. Okay. And the more we stress and worry, each of us, if we're not that person, each of us has a friend or somebody in our life that is an absolute worrywart that has all sorts of belly problems. Right? I can think of 5 easy, bam, bam, bam. Okay. So, one of the things we're going to talk about today, too, is how stress is going to factor into our immune system on this, because we want to tackle this. Now, none of this is of any use to anybody if you can't fix it simply, easily, and cheaply at home. Right? No, but none of us are running out right now to stores and making big investments. So these are steps and things that you can be doing pretty easily at home. And when we finish this TV show, right? There's nothing magical. I like to keep things nice and simple for us. So 78% of the body's immune cells are in our guts. So if you can get your gut right, you've got it 70 to 80% right for the rest of your body. Isn't that fascinating? I don't think we've thought about that, and our doctor visits aren't having enough discussion about our appetites and our diets, and yet it's about 80% of our immune response. So right now, when we're worried about contracting a virus, what you can control is your ability to change your immune system. So the gut's a good place to start. Here's another interesting fact, and this one, this is one of my favorites. 95% of our serotonin is made in the gut. Let's talk for a minute about serotonin. Serotonin is our happy hormone. It's the hormone that regulates a significant amount of our mental health. Will decrease anxiety, alleviates depression, makes us feel happy, and it's made in our gut. So for years, I know when I was in nursing school, we talked about serotonin being made in the brain, right? We had no idea it was being made in the gut. So that's yet another good reason to take care of and mind what you're putting past your lips, knowing that it's truly impacting your mental health. And that's really important right now as we're all quarantined indoors. What's your gut do? So your gut is responsible for immunity. We just discussed that. It also impacts sleep. So many of the population, the 60 and older population, have difficulty sleeping, and they accept it as part of aging, when more likely it's due to dietary changes. So we're going to talk about how fixing the gut also helps with sleep. We just talked about why it's impactful for mood. Nutritional status, right? So the gut still does what they always thought it did, which is break down nutrients and absorb that into our bloodstream. Hydration and toxin removal, right? So if you eat something with a bunch of junk in it, your gut is taking it and transporting it out, okay? So those are all the functions of our gut. Now, here's some interesting, this is sort of like what I call the woo woo stuff. This is stuff I had no idea. When they talk about what impacts our guts today, why do some people have a better gut than others? Why do some people get stomach issues more than others? And it goes beyond diet. What they talk about is the diet of your mom in pregnancy will determine what kind of gut you've got to start with. So if your mom was a junk food junkie, then chances are you're already starting with some gut problems. And how do we measure this? We look at some of the colicky babies, and we go back and we look at mom's diet, and we can see that this is actually transferred through the birthing process. Mode of birth delivery. So those folks that were delivered by C-section and trauma tend to have more gut issues than those that went through a normal vaginal delivery. Our nutrition, what we choose to put past our lips, is a big factor. Quantity of sugar and processed foods, big no with the gut, really causes a problem. And I'm so sorry, Joanne, but the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup is not going to cut it. However, I like to implement an 80-20 rule. So 80% of the times we do really well, and 20% we can be naughty. So if she wants her Reese's Peanut Butter Cup as part of her 20% naughty, we'll allow it.
All right. Well, that will be good news to the staff.
Right? There's no hard nose in this world. And what's the final piece that impacts gut health? And this is really huge in the population we're talking with today. Antibiotic use. Every time you go through a course of antibiotics, you are completely wiping out your gut. Good guys, bad guys, everybody. You're wiping it out. And we see this. We see this with folks who are on antibiotics and then get C. diff, or on antibiotics and get diarrhea. Nobody should be taking an antibiotic without also taking a probiotic at the exact same time. And limiting the use of antibiotics to when they're absolutely necessary is critical, because it's inadvertently, yes, the antibiotic is taking care of the illness, but it's also wiping out our immune system at the same time. So how many times have you seen folks on antibiotics and with C. diff, right? So it's antibiotics are not harmless. They actually can be quite dangerous to our body if not used right, and if we don't mitigate against them. Okay, so let's talk about leaky gut syndrome. So a few of you, we've had this conversation before, a few of you have asked about what does gut health mean in terms of leaky gut, right? So let's talk about what happens with leaky gut. So your intestines are all lined with what we call villi, and they literally look like these, almost like a sea urchin. These lovely little outreaching, and food comes along, and it gets broken down, and it gets absorbed in, and then over here is our blood supply, right? So food comes along here, gets broken down, gets to the blood supply, goes all through the body gets all the nutrients, okay? In leaky gut, these things get swollen open. And what ends up happening is stuff that shouldn't get absorbed starts going down in through here and getting into the bloodstream. So because of the inflammation, right, and picture all my fingers being swollen open, the openings between them are much larger. So the junk that we're ingesting gets put in there, goes to the bloodstream, goes through the body. What starts happening when we see leaky gut, right? There's a lot of things that we start seeing. Chronic diarrhea, chronic constipation, people with irritable bowel, bloating, belching, fatigue, nutritional deficiencies, aches and pains in our joints, headaches, confusion, difficulty concentrating, unexplained rashes. All of those things can be attributed to leaky gut. So, and that really makes sense. If you think about that, so let's take, for example, the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, right? You eat that Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, you've got a leaky gut. Maybe you took antibiotics a couple of weeks ago, okay? Your villi is open like this, and instead of rich nutrients from apple or green leafy vegetables or chicken, Your body is instead getting processed sugars, carbohydrates, very little nutrients into the bloodstream. So if I launch out a Reese's peanut butter cup to the body versus, say, um, kale, your body has much more to work with the kale than it did the Reese's peanut butter cup. So what you may see when the Reese's comes instead of the kale, you might feel lousy. You might still feel hungry. You might still be craving things because you didn't get nutrients. Um, you might feel aches and pains. You may feel bloated, right? So that's the manifestation of the leaky gut. They state that for every 1 week you are on an antibiotic, you need at least a 30-day supply of a probiotic to balance that. And that's oral. Now, if you do IV, so for every day of IV, just because of the intensity, you want to add a month. So if you're on 7 days IV, you've got 7 months of probiotic and rebuilding your gut ahead of you, right? It's that potent. It wipes it out that much. The gut brain axis. So this to me is just fabulous. So your vagus nerve is your longest nerve in your body, and it runs from head to tail. And the vagus nerve is sort of like the like Route 495 in your body, right? It's the big axis from the brain to the gut. It goes back and forth. It also controls inflammation. So when things are off, we know that the vagus nerve, which normally helps us to control inflammation, isn't able to do its job. So we're just starting to see things like folks with rheumatoid arthritis have a lot of vagus nerve engagement. So we're seeing all this stuff. So, and what do you see with people with the vagus nerve? So people with rheumatoid arthritis and people with vagus nerve inflammation, right? What they end up having is that nausea, right? You ever see somebody who does a lot of fainting, has a lot of nausea, has a weak stomach? All of that goes hand in hand with the RA population. Okay. So again, this whole brain body interaction. There are bacteria in our gut that respond to very specific neurotransmitters. So GABA, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, all of the different neurotransmitters impact our body in terms of immune response, mood, feelings, all that good stuff. GABA, GABA, controls feelings of fear and anxiety. So when we don't have the right bacteria and the right level of GABA in the gut, there's a whole lot more anxiety. And you may have seen this. When you have periods of time in your life that you're particularly run down, you might notice that you are more anxious and fearful than periods of time when you are in a much better state, right? So during the summertime, we're all eating better. There's more fresh fruits and vegetables available. People are in a better mood. There's less anxiety. There's less depression, and we call it seasonal affective. But I always wonder: is it seasonal affective disorder, or is it that we eat differently during the winter time? Right? I think that's something worth considering. Serotonin, we talked about that. That's our happiness hormone. It impacts mood and it impacts sleep. And guess what else is made and produced? The precursor to melatonin is also made in our gut. So, again, we're going to talk a little bit in a minute about the sleep gut connection, and that's where it is. It's around that neurotransmitter.
You know what, Kay? Just have a quick question as you're talking about anti-inflammatory. Is there any foods that we really should be adding to our diet right now to help with that? So if I do have that Reese cup, I'm counterbalancing it with the good stuff.
Absolutely. So what causes the inflammation? The sugar, the processed carbohydrates, those things are going to cause inflammation. And that inflammation is going to be body wide for most people, right? So what's the opposite of it? Where's your counterintelligence? Tomatoes, really high quality olive oil, high quality nuts and seeds. So your pumpkin seeds, your almonds, your cashews, not your peanuts. Peanuts are the junk food of the nut world, right? They're not true nuts. They go more in the junk food category. So those sorts of things. Avocados, uh, berries, so your antioxidants. So your strawberries, your blueberries, your raspberries, any of your small berries, all of those are great anti-inflammatory foods to counteract the Reese's cup. And again, remember, we're here for pleasure in this world, right? So 80% of the time, if you are doing the right things by your body, 20% of the times you can indulge.
So, quick question. So, you say two of the top things are tomato, olive oil. Those are two of my favorite things. So, I'm making a little pasta. Is that okay? Because that's the carbohydrate with the. So, what do you suggest?
So that's an interesting thing. So with the carbohydrate, and we'll talk a little bit about the carbs. We we don't need much of any of this whole wheat thing, right? The eliminating wheat, which causes an awful lot of wheat, is our number one inflammatory agent,
Okay.
even higher than sugar. So if you're going to do a pasta dish, right, and I am all about the tomato, basil, olive
Mm,
oil, right,
yeah,
the
it sounds
bruschetta thing.
perfect for dinner.
Yeah, that's my favorite. It goes over zucchini noodles instead of doing pasta. So you can actually take even just a potato peeler and you can do summer squash, you can do zucchini, you can make your own noodles by hand. And what I do is I literally um, flash cook them in the pan, in a frying pan. So a
Mhm.
little bit of garlic, a little bit of olive oil, throw in my zucchini noodles, maybe a minute or two, right? Doesn't take much. They cook really fast. Throw them in. It makes a wonderful pasta substitute.
Okay.
And there are pasta substitutes out there now.
Mhm.
But what happens is, in order to make them the shape we like, conservatives. And if you can get another serving of vegetables in instead of pasta, right? You can do a big long zucchini and make a lasagna out of it. I mean,
Okay.
you can substitute almost every pasta.
Okay. That's easy to do.
It is, and it's
And
surprisingly
it's
tasty.
delicious. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I've learned is, so I don't introduce this stuff to my family as a substitute. So I say, "Ooh, I'm trying a new dish. Tell me what you think." When I see that they like it, I then say, "Could you see why this would be more healthful than spaghetti?"
Mm,
You know what I mean? But you don't introduce it to them as, "Okay, I have a spaghetti dish for you."
right.
Right? Because then
Speak it in.
it can't win. Right? It's
Right.
like it's like comparing the new wife to the old wife, right? She's never gonna win.
Right.
Right? So
Even if she's healthier. Right.
exactly. So I introduce it as a completely different thought, and then we work backwards into maybe we could start eating more of this and less spaghetti.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it.
Sure. Okay, so where are we?
Well,
Hold
we
on.
were talking about gut and inflammation, and then I took you off down a different rabbit hole. So sorry about that.
Okay, not at all. So I'm just getting to, so now inflammation. What happens with leaky gut that is really concerning to us? And it is the inflammation. So there is lots and lots of research out there for those of you that have joint problems, that by changing your diet, you can change and decrease the level of pain in your joints that you're carrying. Yes, some of it is arthritic, but a lot of it is inflammation. So, removing the inflammation foods makes a big difference. Um, so, here are some of the simple things you can do for getting rid of your gut problems. One is get rid of the toxic foods from your diet at least 80% of the time. Okay. And you know what the toxic things are. If it comes in a box, if it comes in a can, more likely than not, it is not what's best for you. You want things that are fresh. You want things that are healthy. You want things that have two or three ingredients in a list. All right. Reduce stress. So we talked about the brain gut health and the connection. And one of the big things right now for all of us is everybody has a certain amount of stress going on right now with this virus, right? It is how what it is. So finding time to be mindful, put on music, go for a walk, meditate, sing, any of those things are stress reducers and they're good for your gut. You want to start eating more healthy fats and fresh foods. So, those of us who grew up um, in the 70s and 80s around Weight Watchers, we made the switch from butter over to margarine. We think fats are terrible and they're not our friends. Okay, here's the reality: healthy fats are necessary and important, imperative for cognitive function as we age. So we don't want the margarine, which is basically a bowl full of plastic. We want the butter, right? We want a whole milk, high fat butter that actually feeds the neurons in our brain. We want avocado. So when you were on Weight Watchers, right? And I refer to Weight Watchers because that was my point of reference. Nobody on Weight Watchers was eating an avocado because it was too many points. The reality of it is the good fats in the avocado are wonderful for us, right? So I make a point of getting in an avocado a day. I have a little with breakfast, a little bit with lunch, a little bit with dinner. Spend your money wisely on your olive oil. Don't buy yucky olive oil because that's the same as buying canola or this. Make sure that you're spending at least a good $10+ on 8 ounces of olive oil and use that to make your dressing and to put that on your food and to cook with your food. That's one of your good fat friends. Don't be afraid of fats. Fats don't make you fat. The carbohydrates, the processed carbohydrates are really our problem. Exercise, whatever that looks like for you, right? I no longer want to run around and go to the gym and, put on my pink leotard and dance with Jane Fonda myself, but I'm very happy taking a nice walk down to the water, enjoying some time there, walking the dog, stretching, right? You do you, but do a little bit of exercise because it serves you well. You want prebiotic, okay? So when we're talking about the bad guys in your gut, we want to take care of prebiotics and probiotics. Probiotics are the actual bacteria. So it's eating food that's going to give us live bacteria to feed our gut zoo with good guys, okay? And what we do, how we feed our zoo is with prebiotics. Okay, so when people ask about pre and probiotics, pre is feeding and the pro is the actual organism. So what do we want to feed our gut? We want to feed it lots of leafy vegetables, lots of fiber. So our gut biome loves fiber. So things that are high in fiber are going to do great things for your gut. You can't get enough of the kale, the spinach, the Swiss chard, all of your spinach, your green leafies. Okay. Where are we going to get our probiotics from? So there's a couple of different places we can get it from. Any fermented food, pickles, but it's not the best. Sauerkraut, great one. Kimchi, kombucha, tempeh, which is sort of a fermented tofu, and yogurt. Now, let's take a minute and talk about what makes a yogurt a good yogurt versus a bad yogurt. Okay? If there's an animal on the outside, pass. There's step one in picking a yogurt, right? It shouldn't squirt out of a thing like for kids or whatever. You want plain yogurt with only 2 or 3 ingredients in it. You want no added sugar. You want to stay away from sugars that say light or fat-free, because in order to make something light or fat-free, they have put a ton of chemicals in to sweeten it. So you basically want to pick. So one of the ones that comes to mind that's usually cost effective, and I like it, and it has a short ingredient list. Stonyfield yogurt. The plain yogurt, whole fat, wonderful, very healthy, has a lot of probiotics, has a lot of cultures in it. So the process of making a yogurt involves. So when we go back to like Activia and Dannon and some of them, when they first started coming out with probiotics for the gut in their yogurt, people complained about the taste. So they started adding more and more sugar. So people buy Activia all the time thinking they're doing great things for their gut. What they're doing is they are putting in live bacteria. There is live bacteria in Activia, but there's so much sugar, you're feeding the bad guys, and the bad guys outrun the good guys.
So, Kay, quick question on that. So really, if I get the plain yogurt, I should use those berries, add the berries in. Is it okay to add vanilla into it? Or
Absolutely. So it's hard to find really good vanilla, that's not just a bunch of alcohol, but even the alcohol. So I always drop a little bit of vanilla, or I put in a little bit of lemon juice. I sweeten it with stevia. So stevia is one of the, if you're diabetic, go the route of stevia. If you're not diabetic, a little bit of honey will sweeten it up nicely for you. And I always say buy local honey. Don't buy the junk in the store. The local stuff has things that will help with your immune system and with your allergies, right? So when you buy local, you get all the pollens and the different things. And then add your berries in. Right? A little bit of maybe coconut flakes on it, some fresh fruit on it, taste, season it up yourself, because it's the sweetening process that's ruining it. And here's the reality. When I first switched, so I was never a big fan of yogurt to begin with, right? That kind of sour taste to it always made me feel like I was eating something rotting, right? Here's the reality. Once you start and switch over to these things, you may not love it at first, but I would not go back to a sweetened yogurt now for nothing. I love the taste of my plain yogurt,
so
right?
Changing your palate and what?
You absolutely change your palate. And when you stop and you think about the fact that this is really about boosting your immune system, when you're in the supermarket, this is why I'm so annoying. This is what I look like in the supermarket. It takes me hours reading the ingredient list on the back of everything, but in the beginning. But then you start to know which brands you can trust and for building up your gut.
Excuse me, Joanne, I've tried to forward you a couple of questions, but they're not getting through to you. So I have two questions for you, Kay. First one is, if I think I have leaky gut, how long will it take of clean eating before I start to feel better?
Oh my gosh, I love that question. Thank you, whoever sent that. So everybody's a little bit different. So there are some folks that I've seen be able to turn around their leaky gut in as little as 4 weeks of daily probiotic use and 100% eating clean, right? So if you're really trying to get out of a leaky gut cycle, you don't do 80-20, you do 100%, right? You want to just drive this out. You can do it in as little as 4 weeks. I've seen people who have gone as long as 6 months. And it really depends what the nature of the leaky gut is. If you have been eating badly for all of your adult life, it's going to take a little bit longer. If you are somebody who has been exposed to multiple rounds of antibiotics over the last 6 months, it's going to take you a little bit longer, right? If you have fallen off the wagon, so you were somebody who was eating really well, and then this quarantine happens and you started eating nothing but Oreos, you're back a little bit quicker, right? If you've already laid the foundation down.
Okay, thank you. That's excellent advice.
Love that question.
Yeah, and the other question is, there's like probiotic gummies that you can buy. There's pills or things you can take that claim to be the probiotic answer. Could you respond to that, please?
I swear, it's almost like we planted these amazing questions. So think about this with me. Probiotic gummies. Okay. Can you make a gummy without there being an inordinate amount of sugar and gelatin involved? No, you can't. I see a lot of multivitamins, melatonin, and now probiotic gummies coming out with people. And it literally is like it's giving yourself candy, right? There's the good bacteria cannot be suspended in there and lasting and doing anything good. How do you find a good probiotic? You want live cultures, okay? So you want something that is live and needs to be refrigerated, right? This is top shelf. So if you want the best, you want something that goes in your fridge. You want something that has live cultures. You want something that has at least 5 different, the more is the better. So if you see something with 1 or 2, it's okay. 3 or 4, meh, better. 5 to 10 different types of colony in there, that's your sweet spot. I've never seen more than 10. I usually see somewhere between 5 and 10 is the norm. And they're live bacteria. The whole science of understanding exactly what bacteria we need is evolving. So they're just starting to have services where you can actually send out a stool sample and they can tell where you live, what you eat, your genetics. They can tell all this amazing stuff from a stool sample and send back to you now recommendations of what you need more of. So maybe you need more lactobacillus acidus, or maybe you need more enterococcus this or that. So they're actually starting to work on developing what an optimum gut biome looks like, right? I mean, how crazy is that?
Well,
So
that's interesting, because that kind of goes into this last question I got, which was, can you test, or is there a test for how healthy your gut actually is when it comes to what it's supposed to have in it?
Yes, there is, and it's not mainstream. So there is a doctor, Dr. William Davis. He wrote the book Wheat Belly, and I am a great big fan of Undoctored. His whole premise is we see our PCP once a year for a wellness physical for an average of 11 minutes. That means the other 365 days, 23 hours, we are our own doctor in charge of our bodies, and we need to be educated. So that is a book that you can download on Audible or you can order through Amazon. Has great resources, and in the back of it, there's actually instructions on how you can actually send a stool sample out to somebody for testing.
Hey, Kay, I had one email. What about the keto diet? That's kind of doing the fat, staying away from the carbs. How do you feel about that kind of a diet?
Oh my God, I love you guys today. So if you would ask me that a year ago, I would have said to you, that's just another crazy fad. There is such a thing as healthy keto. So whether you want to call it paleo, healthy keto, whatever. I am a fan of Dr. Berg's, Berg. And on YouTube, he has like 2,500 videos on all these different topics. He talks about healthy keto, and that is how I choose to eat in my life. So I have eliminated the processed carbs. And so if you picture a plate, right? Let's picture a round plate. 1/2 of my plate is always green leafy vegetables. And then down here, so 1/4 of the plate is my protein. And up here is my healthy fat. And I have no room on my plate for carbohydrates. My carbohydrates come from my vegetables.
So what about that good loaf of bread from the little baker? Is that, I mean, if you're gonna treat yourself 20, is that where you get the bread?
So if you're going to treat yourself, go sourdough. So
Okay.
sourdough has in it a fermentation process. So it's at least offsetting the bread, the wheat, with some good bacteria in your gut if you're going to go a bread, and go small. You can also make breads with almond flour or coconut flour that aren't really flours. They're not wheat. So I can make hamburger rolls. I can make a bunch of things with it. But I like the keto diet for certain people. Diabetics, people with metabolic syndrome, heart disease, people who struggle with their weight. It's wonderful. For folks that don't need that diabetic component, you can do keto 80-20. Here's the problem with keto. So if you're really trying to lose weight, you need to adhere to keto. You can't cheat. When you cheat on keto, you come out of ketosis. And all ketoacidosis is your body is choosing to burn fat instead of sugar, right? You're training it to do that. If you do the 80-20 on keto, I feel like you're coming out of keto, but you're still eating a really well-balanced diet.
So that's a good way to live.
It is. And healthy keto, not this bad fat. People who put a pound of bacon on their plate and go, oh, I'm eating keto. No, you're not. You're eating garbage. There is such a thing as healthy keto. Keto has gotten a very bad name because people have really taken the eating the butter, the eating the bacon. This isn't about eating calorie There's not a whole lot of nutrition in a piece of bacon, right? So why not use that and eat? I'd rather eat a piece of fish this big than one slice of bacon.
Okay. I'm looking up healthy keto as we as we work on the program.
Yeah, so healthy keto, Dr. Berg to me is the one that speaks the most sense. So when I'm looking for my nutrition stuff, I use a combination of Dr. Berg and Dr. William Davis. That's
Okay.
where I trust the two of them in terms of the message they've been sending. And then next week, we're going to talk about Dr. Fung, Fung, who is the diabetes guru, right? And these guys are just what we knew about health and wellness.
Well, Kay, thank you for sharing this wonderful information. I'm fortunate I have these items in my pantry, most of them. One thing right now, it may not be you may not be able to get some of the fresh items. What about frozen? If you said canned, not so good, but frozen a better option, or canned if it doesn't have a lot of salt and very few ingredients, is that okay too?
Yeah, so therein lies the challenge for all of us right now, and the challenge for folks that live one or two, right? So I raised 5 kids. I'm used to cooking for 7, right? I'm used to have to prepare my meals differently now. Couple of tips and tricks. So I buy what they call their silicone Ziploc bags. You can get them on Amazon, and they're reusable zip bags. And so for me, and they, how sometimes when you buy the Ziploc baggies, they don't zip on you, right? And then everything gets lost. These ones are solid. So that's why I choose to use those, and they're good for the environment. But what you want to do is when you pick your groceries up fresh. So let's use Brussels sprouts. So what I do is I grab my Brussels sprouts from the store when they're there and they're in stock. When the price is good, I stock up a little bit and buy some extra. I bring them home. I soak them and I wash them. I cut off the bottoms, peel off the yuckies, put them in a Ziploc, in my little silicone bag. Make sure they're well zipped. Put them in the freezer, right? I know then at that point they're clean. There's no added salt. There's no nonsense. They're for me when I'm ready to reach for them. It's the same as eating healthy, as eating fresh.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you for that information.
So, and what are some of the other ones that do that? So there's no way around fresh greens that I have found yet to freeze them, right? So if you go to the store and you get the salad mix that's spinach and arugula, I can't find, once you put that in the freezer, right, it goes green and soggy on you. So what I do is I will take spinach, arugula, Swiss chard, kale, and I will chop, clean it all up nice, wash it, clean it up nice, and throw it all together in one bag in the freezer. And then I'll use that as a stir fry.
Okay.
So that's a great way to get a lot of greens in. So you should be aiming for 4 to 7 cups a day of green leafy. And to me, that was a lot. So by cutting it up, I will throw a cup into, if I'm making a soup. If I'm making a tomato sauce, I will puree the ever-living bejesus out of those greens and hide them in the sauce. You'd be surprised what you can hide in your sauce. You can hide a lot, right? So you can take it and throw it in your smoothie. So if you do one smoothie a day, I find I have to do a smoothie to keep up with what the nutrient allotments are. So in goes an avocado usually will go in there along with my green leafies. You can hide quite a bit in a smoothie if you're creative.
Right. Wonderful. Well, Kay, we're getting close to the end of time. We have shared some wonderful information on gut health. If you get a chance to go out to the grocery store, make sure you add those tomatoes, good quality olive oil, pumpkin, cashews, almonds. Avocados seem they need to move up on the list if you're not eating avocados, and use your vegetables in as many ways as possible.
Yes, and one more, and this is the piece de resistance, cacao. So for those of you who love your chocolate, right? So back to the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup girl. So I buy my cacao. I get it from Navitas Organic, right? And it's a 2-pound bag of cacao. cacao is chocolate before it's processed and stripped. So it's what you find in your dark chocolate. So it has a little bit of bitter, but it's like a powder, like you'd make a drink with. Putting a scoop of that in your yogurt, in your shake. If you mix your cacao with equal parts of coconut solid or coconut oil, you actually can make your own little chocolate bars. We could do a whole show on how to make great chocolate that's really really good for you. So get your hands on some of that too if you've got the sweet tooth and you want to know how to make healthier chocolate for yourself.
So I think we definitely need to add that into one of our things because I love candy. That's one of my vices, avocado and candy.
And
So
we're
yeah,
gonna
we'll
have
look
to
forward
we're
to
gonna have to
having that. But next week we'll really look forward to part two of the health, your food and health.
yeah,
Wonderful.
this has been really wonderful, ladies. If you want to watch this again, because there was so much information that was on this show today, I took 2 pages of notes, Kay. Really, really good
Wow.
stuff. You can go to pactv.org/Duxbury. And anything that we've done for Duxbury, including all the shows that Kay has done, will be right on there. Again, every Wednesday from 10:30 a.m. to about 11:15, we will have this with Joanne and with Kay, and great information. And please don't forget to send in your questions to duxburyinfo@pactv.org, and we'll forward them to Kay so she can answer some of your questions based on this week's information next week before she brings in a new topic. So, ladies, thank you so much. Thank you from PACTV, and have a nice day.
Have a
Thank
great
you all.
day.
Bye
Thank you.
bye. Be good.